Math 7, Unit 4, Percent and Proportion, Lesson 5, Part 3, Percent of Change, Notes. All right, on page 65 in the notes, looks like we are working on using the percent proportion and the percent equation to solve percent problems. We can calculate the percent of a number, solve percent of change problems, including finding percent of change, new amount, and original amount. Focus here is going to be on finding the percent of change. We will focus on the other two in another lesson. And understanding the relationship between various percent situations. First, the vocabulary. Percent change. It's the amount of change represented as a percent of the original, either as an increase or a decrease. For example, 4 increased by 50% gives you 6. 10 decreased by 30% will give you 7. An increase is to become greater or more, and a decrease is to become fewer or less. Now, to do percent of change problems, these are problems of the form, you're given an original number and given a new number. These might be in context and you have to figure out which number is which. And it does include whether it's an increase or a decrease. So, for example, if you were finding the percent of change from 60 years to 80 years, first you would calculate the amount of change, which would be 20 years, just subtract. Then you divide it by the original, 20 divided by 60, it gives you 0.3 repeating. Change that to a percent and call it an increase because it did increase, 33.3% increase. Another example, changing from $150 to $115. You would start by calculating the change using subtraction. Then you would divide 35 by 150, that's 0.2333, rounding to the nearest tenth of a percent here. 23.3%, and it did go down, so we call it a decrease. Okay, determine the percent of change. Page's savings goes from $12 to $20. Well, first, calculate the amount of change. The amount of change here is $8. Now, you need to compare that 8 to the original. The original here would be what it was first, 12. 8 divided by 12 gives us 0.666, a bunch of sixes. Move the decimal twice, this is 66.6%, repeating of course. And it did increase, so it's a 66.6% increase. Let's look at example 441. Ben has a growth spurt over the summer and went from 47 inches to 50 inches. First we figure out the amount of change, 50 minus 47. Ben grew 3 inches. By the way, he grew, so it's going to be increased. That's 3 inches compared to the 47 that he started at. 3 divided by 47 is 0.0638. 0.0638. If I move the decimal and round it, this is 6.4%, and it did go up, so it's a 6.4% increase. Example 442. The cost of a gallon of gasoline went from 22.499 per gallon to $3.05.9 per gallon. So first we need to figure out how much it changed. So 3.059 minus 2.499 gives us, what would that be? I'm going to check this with a calculator. So 3.059 minus 2.499 is 0.56. So it did change 56 cents. And you divide that by the original. The original is what it started at, 2.499. And 0.56 divided by 2.499 gives me 0.224. It does go beyond that, but that's just rounding going on. That's 22.4%. It did go up, so it's a 22.4% increase in price. Example 443. Let's change the color here. The length of school lunch went from 18 minutes to 25 minutes. First, we would take 25 minus 18 and find that it did change by 7 minutes. Take the 7 minutes compared to the 18 minutes that it was originally. That would be the original amount. So 7 out of 18 would be 0.3888 well, with the 8 just continuing to repeat. This would round to 38.9%, and it did increase, so we call this a 38.9% increase. Well, so far everything's been increasing. Example 444. The end of season sale has a $35 pair of jeans for $15.75. All right, first thing we would do is find out the amount of change. 35 minus 15.75, and that is $19.25. So it changed by $19.25, and that's compared to the original price of a $35 pair of jeans. Let's do $19.25 divided by 35. That is 0.55. Move the decimal. This is 55% decrease. In future lessons, we're going to be calling this discount. This is a 55% discount. Example 445. Claire lets her hair grow out. It grows from 3 inches to 9 inches long. Well, first, that is 6 inches of growth. We need to take that 6 inches of growth and compare it to the original. We get 6 divided by 3 is 2. Move the decimal twice. This is 200% increase. It increased by more than 100%. Which actually, 200% increase, you should notice, means that it tripled. It was the original amount plus 2 times the amount would get you up to 3 times the amount. Okay, in the practice here, you're going to, on number 1, take a number and increase it or decrease it by a percent. This is in the first of the 3 videos in this lesson. Probably go ahead and do an example here. You would take 13 days as the original, multiply by 20% to get the part. So 20% of 13, and that would be 2.6. And then you can increase it by that. So you take 13 plus 2.6, and you get 15.6 days as the answer here. If it were decreased, you would have decreased it. Number 2, identify the percent of change as increase or decrease, then find the percent of change. Round to the nearest 1/10 of a percent if necessary. So these are like the examples that we just did in the notes. Number 3, use the percent proportion or the percent equation to answer each. That's a review. Number 4, determine each percent. So more percent problems. Number 5 is a review back from unit 1. Just add, subtract, multiply, and divide using the standard algorithms. Number 6, fill in the blank so that this equation has a solution of x equals 3. Remember, when the solution is 3, that means you plug 3 in for x and it's true. So I would try plugging in 3 for x and see what the blank has to be. Because right here, 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus something is 5. You can figure out what that something is. Number 7, we are comparing 3 Utah counties to see who had the highest percent increase in population. This is from the 2000 and the 2010 U.S. censuses. And then number 8, we're looking at a sandbox and we're going to change the size of it and find the percent of change in its perimeter and its area.